All right, so a lot going on, man. It's this healing is crazy, man. It just takes the shit out of you, you know. Um, I watched this real short video on CPTSD. So I don't really absorb any content on this stuff, you know. I realize it's fucked up and that it's something that I have to manage and deal with and heal and face and confront, and dig up and put together. But I was reading the comments, you know, and man, when you read the comments below a CPTSD video, if you read the comments of somebody who's been abused as a child, it's sickening, man. It's absolutely disgusting. Um, it's so sad. Um, what happens when you're abused as a child like that is your brain does not develop properly. It develops in certain ways. You have many major issues throughout your life until you heal. Mm. But yeah, just reading their comments, man, is just like, it makes me so sad, you know? So a story, when my son was 7, my younger son was 7, I had just gotten out of my brother's, like 6 months prior, I think. I believe this is the timeline. Now, my timelines can be fucked up, but I believe this is the timeline. I believe it's about 6 months prior. I had maybe, no, it had been within 6 months. Within 6 months of getting out of my brother's house, checking myself into the VA, committing myself, getting out of there, getting off all their pills, and doing my own healing. Within 6 months of that, I had my son and daughter. I lived up on a mountain with a buddy. I was renting a room, you know. I mean, I was barely surviving. I had my son and daughter for the weekend. My son was staying with me that night, and I was going to take him to school the next day. My daughter needed to go home. She lives 45 minutes away. Well, at the time, all I had was my work van. My work van had 2 seats. In Virginia, you have this law where you got to have the kid, you know, these kids got to be fucking in a goddamn safety seat until they're like 13 years old or 100 pounds. My wife was 90 pounds when I met her. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just stupid. So anyways, you know, again, as a single poor father, I had to make a decision. And I said, well, you know, Aiden, he was 7 years old at the time. I said, you got to stay here. I don't have a seat for you and I don't want to take a chance. You know what I mean? So all I was doing, took my daughter straight up, 45 minutes to drop her off, 45 minutes back. I was going to be home within an hour and a half, 2 hours tops. I'd be home. We'd go to bed, get up, go to school, and take them to school the next day. Well, I get home, you know, less than 2 hours later, my son's gone, and come to find out, the sheriffs had come. The neighbor had called the cops because my son was crying. Anyway, so it was a mess, man. Yeah, I had to go to, you know, after having these kids, I had to go to a parenting class that lasted for months. But in my parenting class, I was in there with one other woman, and she was a black woman about my age, thereabouts, heavy set, poor. She wears hearing aids, obviously, because of trauma as a child, tons of trauma as a child. But she was in this parenting class too. This was her 3rd time in this parenting class. This 3rd time, she did it by herself. She was going voluntarily. The first 2 times, she was forced by the state. She's the one that did this picture and the other 2 pictures on my wall for me. The 2 green pictures. We've been friends ever since. She does poetry, the art. Yeah, we've been friends ever since. And she's got a very skewed point of view of things. She doesn't think black people can be racist, you know, because that's what the government has pumped into her. And a poor woman, a poor black woman who has grown up in the system, of course that's what she's going to think, because that's all the system propitiates towards her. But I even gave her son was 18, and wherever he was living down south, they threw him out, kicked him out. She begged me, can he move in with you? I was like, yes, of course. You know, if he needs a place to stay, of course he can. But he's got to, you know, help out. He's got to do his thing. And at that time, my older son was living with me and working with me. And I moved him in, and the boy didn't want to do anything. You know, he didn't want to work. He didn't want to pay for anything. I was paying for his food. I paid for his car because the car broke down a couple times. Finally, I had to kick him out after a couple months. I was like, no, man, this ain't a fucking free ride, bud. Just because you're black doesn't mean this shit's for fucking free. Doesn't mean that I had anything to do with any of your fucking torture or anything else, or your mom's torture, you know? But that's how they treated me. So I kicked his ass out, but she, you know, I'm still friends with her. But she understands that where, you know, you're not going to walk on me because of my color of my skin. That sure as fuck ain't going to happen. But I mention this because this is poor people. These are poor people with CPTSD. These are poor people whose brains aren't fully developed. These are poor people just trying to survive. These are poor people who the system is all wrapped up for, that the system says, don't worry, we'll take care of you, and puts them on the program, keeps them on the program their whole life, to the point where they're going to parenting classes voluntarily. It's very sad. And if you haven't had child PTSD, if you weren't abused as a child, if you weren't abused so badly day in and day out as a child that you didn't know if you were going to be safe, if you were going to live to see the next day, you had no idea what the truth was until it was told to you, and you were afraid to say anything until that truth was told to you. If you haven't had that, then you need to just shut the fuck up. Shut your fucking little bitchy mouth and just sit there and listen to other people suffering. Listen to other people suffering and take it in and understand that there's things worse than getting a broken fingernail. There's things worse than missing breakfast. There's things worse than these little fucking inconveniences that you guys think, you know, makes your life so traumatic. This is a special kind of abuse, and it happens. There's billions. I'm not saying I'm special. There's billions of us out there suffering from this. Billions. Billions. And people going around calling us NBCs, calling us evil, calling us saying we don't have souls, saying all this shit. Man, y'all some bitch ass motherfuckers, man. Bitch ass motherfuckers, dude. Don't have a fucking clue. Been coddled your whole life. Unbelievable, man. Unfucking real. Pass judgment on people, man. Pass judgment on people's souls. That's crazy, dude. That's fucking nuts, bud. But yeah, man, it's not easy. This CPTSD is no joke. You know, again, I have nothing to lose. I should be dead. I should have been dead a long time ago. I'm just taking this as an opportunity to tell my fucking story. And again, I just hope it gives other people to tell their fucking stories and get their shit out there. Because the way that this shit works, this whole CPTSD, the only reason this thing works is because we don't talk, you know, and we don't talk because it's weird how we were treated, man. Like, nobody wants to hear our shit, you know what I mean? Like, they'd rather live in the lie that everything's okay and that nothing happened than have to face the pain and suffering that somebody else went through, a family member or whoever else that they denied or refused to listen to or hear. Um, but yeah, you read these stories, man. You read the people just in a couple paragraphs tell their story, and it's just so sad. It's just so sad, man. And the fact that anybody would judge somebody that has been through that's how they were raised and didn't ask for it, and that they're dealing with things and like processing emotions and processing things. They were never given an opportunity as a young kid to be able to have their own thoughts and ideas and expound upon them and learn how to troubleshoot them. So these things we had to learn on our own as survivors, because we truly did survive. We survived our parents, you know. Like I said about my mom, I mean, I know she wanted me alive because that's how work got done. So, maybe that's even worse, just keeping you alive enough so that way you can fucking get the work done. I don't know. I know it's a rough, nasty, dirty fucking road though, man. I know it's not easy, and I know anybody who judges somebody who's been through this and they haven't been through the same, they can suck a big fat one, dude. And even like me, I mean, all the abuse I went through, and I didn't want to hear about anybody else's abuse because I never got to talk about mine. Nobody would ever let me talk about mine. I didn't want to hear about anybody else's, you know. Although I know I've listened to people, you know, throughout my life, but it would make me sick. It made me completely physically sick because I couldn't deal with it because of all the suppressed trauma and emotions I had that I'm getting out now. Yeah, man. So just a bunch of poor, abused people, man. Poor, abused people. That's what we are. Poor, abused people. And I say we because that's the stories I'm reading of other people like me. I'm sure there's wealthy people that are abused, of course. And I'm not making light of anybody else's situation in their own way, but man, do not sit here and judge other people if you weren't abused as a child. Because you have no fucking clue, man. You have no fucking clue what it does to your brain and your psyche and everything else. You know what I mean? It takes a true soldier to get through that shit, bud. But yeah, and again, I just want to reinforce, guys, don't let anybody tell you what the truth is. Don't let anybody fucking tell you what happens after we die. Fuck that noise, dude. I mean, I had a near-death experience, and I knew, even from my own experience, I knew something was off. I knew something wasn't right, right? Don't let some cocksucker that is alive and typing on the internet tell you what happens when you die, to you when you die. They have no fucking clue. They don't know. They're taking a guess. They're intuiting. That's fine. They're thinking. That's fine. They're getting away from the programming. They're getting away from the groupthink. That's fine. But don't let them sit there and condemn you and talk down to you and tell you who they know is a true soul and who isn't. Because that's called condemnation. And the religious people do that. These cocksuckers who think they're mightier than thou do that. They know who's going to heaven and who's not, man. Oh my goodness. So yeah, guys, don't let these people tell you, man, your truth. You know what I mean? Ultimately, the truth lies within you. Period. Ultimately, the truth lies within you. It's up to you. And if you are going to sit there and let somebody else condemn you and talk shit about your experience, that is your issue. That is your problem. Because that's actually their fucking problem if they're doing that stupid shit. But yeah, just things that are on my mind. I'll probably do another video.